to a debate.
No,
I'll just tell you, by the way. I'll just tell you. Can I say something?
You're making claims that
Can I just say something? Al-Ghazali, Ibn Sina, okay? These are two of the most important figures in Islamic history.
One of the most important figures.
So, can I say...
Al-Ghazali, which Al-Ghazali? You know there's two Al-Ghazali?
Okay, good. So, can I say to you, they were the bedrock, they are the bedrock of philosophical thought in general. So I'm not just talking about Islamic thought. So when I'm saying here, if you're getting in a debate...
Wait a second, for the viewers, so they won't have misinformation, you are wrong.
Of philosophical thought. Philosophical thoughts.
There was a lot of them at that time or prior to them. Okay. So you cannot just.
So can I just say something to you? Can I say something to you? Those who I'm referring to are, and you can speak to any Western person who's not even.
I'm not a Western person.
When I'm talking about Western, I'm talking about someone who studies Western philosophy. Okay. So even someone who's not religious, they will say those figures I'm talking about shaped philosophy in general.
1 second.
So yeah.
Based on me not being, from the Western world.
No, I'm not talking about Western in that way.
Based on them being from my part of world, we know who they are. Do you understand what I mean?
No.
Ibn Sina.
Yeah.
Yes. And Al-Ghazali, I don't know which Ghazali even referring to. Okay. It's still Ghazali.
Okay. So can I what my whole point of what I was saying was that I'm giving you now a philosophical argument. Philosophy, you cannot remove it away from religion. Philosophy and religion was always wedded together. But it's a false dichotomy now to say, oh, philosophy and religion, they can't come together. You're talking about philosophy, you're talking about philosophy. That's never how it was. When things were being communicated.
Let me tell you where and when you're wrong. Let me tell you where and when you're wrong.
Tell me.
For instance, I'll tell you, in the time of the four madahib of the four imams that created the schools of thought that created our madhab, which is the way we think. But in Baghdad, in Iraq, there was people that started all this philosophy nonsense, and these things about blasphemy, about God, about talking about the attribute of God, and going and saying whatever they want to say about God, because they thought, you can use philosophy, and they was talking about the Quran as well. They used to say the Quran is a creation of God, but the Quran says in the Quran itself, it said this Kalamullah, the word of God. So for us, philosophy, 1 second, you can make the claims that you believe in, then I explain to you, and you made the claim that religion and philosophy go hand to hand. You are wrong here. Because I'm going to tell you why.
I did a PhD in philosophy, just tell you.
Well, no problem.
Looking at religion.
No problem.
So, just telling you.
In Islam? Have you got a PhD in Islam?
No, listen.
Then listen to a Muslim person.
Can I?
No problem.
Because I mean, by the way, 1 second, you did jump in. You did jump in.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
And he's not
agreed on.
I'm saying, 1 second. 1 second. Yeah. There was another lady who was here about an hour ago who was jumping all the time, and she wasn't allowed to have anything to do with our conversation.
Then I said we can speak to Muhammad.
He's got no problem. What I'm trying to say.
The only reason why I spoke
about this
can I?
The guy you were willing to answer.
Can I just?
If you don't want to,
okay, I'll say the last point and then I'm going to go back to you.
I'm going to answer you, then you can go back to him.
What I'm saying, I'm not giving an argument for authority saying I have a PhD in philosophy or whatever. But I'm saying philosophy and looking at the history of philosophy, you can understand that it's always been part of a religious thought when you're communicating. So even though specific people in your religion might have not held you, if you're communicating it...
Not in Islam, say in other religions.
Can I say one thing? When you say God is almighty, what do you mean?
It means he's almighty.
So you just said you defined the word I needed to define with the word.
What is almighty?
That's why I just asked you. No, because I need to know from him. No, I need to know from him. He just said to me, God is all... I said to you, what is God? God is almighty.
Let's deal with the first claim.
God is almighty.
What is it?
No, 1 second. No, 1 second.
Let me answer.
God is almighty.
It's part of philosophy, isn't it?
God is all knowing. What does it mean?
Yeah.
God is almighty. God is all knowing. What does it mean when you use it?
Knows everything.
Knows everything.
And he can do everything.
What's everything?
And everything that he wills.
Everything in
1 second, 1 second.
And everything that we don't see and everything that we don't
everything that he wills. Everything that he wills.
Okay.
And the heavens and the earth.
So can I ask you now? So you're saying to me God can choose to cease to exist?
Okay, these are Piers questions.
Wait.
No, I'm asking you.
Wait, Muhammad.
Just to use your reasoning. Use your reasoning.
No, wait, no problem. You ask the question.
God can choose to cease to exist.
That question was invented
1 second.
by creation, not by creation.
Muhammad, 1 second.
No, I'm asking
creation.
You just...
No problem. Let him ask. We ask.
1 second. You just said to me now that God can do everything. So I'm
remember
saying that,
God-
and you were defining everything.
So you would further go to say one thing. You would further go to say, okay, God can create a rock that He can't lift.
No, obviously.
When we say that God is able of all things, going back to the tautology that we spoke of, if God wanted to create dry rain, which is away from our logic as human beings, God surely can do this. And it is not. And by the way, do you know? All right. Can I ask you something? One thing I will state. You know, when we're speaking now, educated, teacher to teacher, follower of God, or someone that claims to be follower of God and someone that claims to be follower of God, and we're speaking about religion and everything, and you're bringing in your philosophical aspects, and I'm bringing in evidences from the Bible and evidences from Quran, etc., etc. Now, when we go into these philosophical beliefs, now this is upon our logic. This is not God's logic. Our logic as creation. So we're standing here and we're saying, you know what? Through my logic as creation, through the philosophy and the theory based upon the theory that directs me to my understanding. Can God cease to exist? I mean,
can I just
arguing it from a satanic angle.
Can I speak?
It's very simple to answer. God does not go against His attributes.
Oh, so there's something God can't do then?
Second, wait.
You just showed me then. God doesn't go against His
Let me finish my answer. God's got attributes. He's the eternal. He cannot cease to exist. Do you understand?
Exactly.
Going against the eternal.
But you're using philosophy.
But you say you're Christian.
You're using philosophy. I'm telling you now, you're using philosophy.
What is philosophy? Can you define for us philosophy, please?
Like I say, you can go with a philosopher called Avram Panting and just say...
Explain it.
Yeah, I'll just give you the definition. Just asking the question why and how to something. If you say, why is it like this? How does that work? You're doing philosophy. Simple as that. So I'm telling you, you are doing philosophy. You are.
But if you say it this way, then there's no problem.
There was no problem here. I have no issue.
Based on your
I haven't
common
had
sense,
an
1
issue.
second,
You
Muhammad.
didn't ask them a question though. You made a gibberish statement.
What statement? Tell me, please.
A gibberish statement.
Tell me.
I'll tell you.
What statement? Yeah.
Because what is a question? Let's define. A question has two essential properties.
Yes.
It must have a potential answer, and it must be free from contradictions.
Okay.
Right. So your statement was not a question.
What was my statement?
Oh, can God choose to cease to exist?
Exactly. Oh, Mansour,
It's not a question for the following reasons.
He's actually come and supported me. That's what I've been saying.
No, I'm saying you didn't ask a question. You made a gibberish statement.
Listen, because I know all of you are going to start laughing. What? You've actually supported my statement. Because I said to him, you are talking about nothing. When you say that God can create a married bachelor, you are talking about nothing.
Yeah,
so you've supported my statement.
Yeah, but again, this is wordplay, and it goes...
supported my statement.
You know the tautologies we were speaking of, all it does is promote it.
He just supported me.
It doesn't go against it. Yeah, but that still doesn't go against it.
No, but I agree completely with what he said.
What's the example of the tautology I gave you? What's the example of it?
Sorry, I can't even remember. I mean, you have to tell me.
Right, no
say again, yeah. Dry rain, yeah.
Dry rain.
Yeah, it's talking about nothing.
Okay, fine, but you are the one who posed, you came with this question posed, can God cease to exist?
Okay.
Can God create, for example, a stone, for example,
Okay.
and that's in the same thing that He can't live.
Okay, so can I say something? So, Mansour, can I say something?
And I said to you that these are questions not created by the Creator. These are questions created by...
Can I say something?
By creation.
Just to say, he supported my point. Because you are actually talking about nothing. When you say dry rain, you unpack those sentences, they contradict each other, so you're talking about nothing.
Does that go to refute what I'm
This is exactly what I've been saying. All this time, this is what I've been saying.
Brothers, it only supports to a point because in principle we understand this makes sense. But when you say God is a God-man, God is unknowledgeable and not unknowledgeable at the same time, you need to really be consistent.
So how is it contradictory?
Okay. God being eternal, of course, you have to reject the opposite. You can't say He can cease to exist, because that will be inherently contradictory, right? So if you believe God is eternal, He cannot be someone who is finite being and cease to exist.
I agree with you.
Right. Yep. If you believe God is unknowledgeable, you have to reject the opposite, that God is ignorant, or can be ignorant. You believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you believe Jesus Christ was divine to begin with before He came into this world.
Yes.
He was unknowledgeable.
Yes.
But then He became ignorant. He didn't know the hour. Only the Father knows.
Okay.
So, if you affirm to begin with that divine Son was unknowledgeable at the beginning, then He can never be ignorant. But you believe He became ignorant.
Okay, so
now, isn't that something, nothing?
Can I explain?
Of course, that's the whole point.
So I said to him before you came, there's an understanding so called reduplicative predication. So when you're talking about one part of something, okay, that doesn't necessarily mean the other part is being affected. So give an example here. Okay, if you're talking about that's a rotten apple, it could just be the skin that's rotting. Sorry, it could just be the skin that's rotten, but the core isn't. And when you say that's a red apple, it is a red apple, but it's only the skin, not the core, not the flesh of it. That's a different colour. So when we're saying that Jesus died, I'm only referring to one part of him dying. That's his human nature that ceased to exist.
The divine didn't die.
The divine nature never ceased to exist.
So God never died then. It was the human that died.
See, but then you have...
According to your understanding, the human died.
No, but then I'm saying...
There's the creation that died.
No, you got it wrong. So when I said to you reduplicative predication...
Can you explain that a bit more? Okay. Which part died?
Okay, the human nature. So when I'm saying to you that, I can say to you, God died. But then you have to say, what do you mean? I'm referring then to the part of God that ceased to exist. You can say Jesus died, or Jesus died. And I say, yes, I'm referring to the human part of Jesus that ceased to exist. So not the divine, yes. It's not the human person. Because, yes.
When you say the human died, is the human attribute or nature part of God's nature?
No, it's not essential. Right. It's an accidental property.
When you say accidental property, did God acquire it?
Yes, so it's accidental.
So God acquired a non-godly attribute.
God acquired a non-godly attribute. No, he acquired a human nature. Okay, can I finish?
What?
That human nature had a property which was contradictory. Okay, but God didn't acquire that property ceasing to exist because he can't. He acquired the human nature, okay, which then ceased to exist.
Let me clarify my question.
Yes.
God is God with his divine attributes.
Yes.
And these attributes are attributes of perfection.
Yes, divine nature, yes.
Human attribute is not perfect.
Okay, yes, so human nature,
so
yes.
You somehow believe God has absolute perfect attributes, but he acquired or added into his nature some imperfect attributes.
Oh, no.
Okay, so let me clarify again one point then. The human attributes that God acquired, are these perfect attributes?
Sorry, say that again, sorry?
The human attributes that God added to his nature.
Are they perfect attributes?
Were they perfect or are they perfect attributes?
I'll say no, I'll go with it. They weren't perfect, yes.
So they were not perfect?
Yes.
So the perfect divine being, which we call God Almighty, added onto his nature imperfect attributes.
No, I never said that.
You just said that now.
Can I explain? Can I explain?
Explain.
Okay. When something has an accidental property, okay, it doesn't go into the essence of an individual. So let me give you an example now. Okay, I have an accidental property of being black. I could bleach my skin and become white. I would still be a human being. It doesn't change my nature or my essence as a human being. That's an accidental property. To me, have an arm, okay, that's an accidental property. I lose it, I still am a human being. Those are my necessary properties. Being rational, being an animal. That's what makes me a human being. Having an arm, having, black skin, those are accidental properties. When I'm talking about Jesus, okay, and the attributes that he has here, I'm not talking about his necessary, essential attributes.
What are the necessary, essential attributes of a human?
Of a human, rationality, animality, moral awareness.
Is that perfect?
Sorry?
Are these perfect?
Are these perfect?
For a human being that God created?
No.
So
yeah, I wouldn't say yes.
So let's go back to the drawing board again.
Okay.
The divine being who is absolutely perfect,
yes,
added in attributes which are from a human nature. So did he add from the human nature, which is like skin color, arm, or a body, or the essential attributes of a human, like rationality and?
Yes. But you have to
so which one was added to God's nature?
Okay, can I speak, please? Okay. Rationality, animality, moral awareness, all those things that makes a human a human. Okay? I'm talking about the human nature.
No,
because you used a term before. You said God mixed in.
I didn't say mixed in. I never used the word mixed.
He said
added. Or added in. When you're referring to that, you're saying he added into his nature, his divine nature.
Why don't you clarify? What happened to the divine attributes and to human attributes?
Okay.
Did God take in those attributes as part of his attributes?
Did God take in those attributes? I would always say God was rational. God was morally aware.
No.
or not?
We're not talking about God's attributes. Divine attributes,
Yes.
we agree they're perfect.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
There's no question about it.
Yes.
When we're talking about God taking in or incarnating a human being,
Yes.
so he has taken in some attributes of the creation that he has created.
Yes, he's taken on.
Right.
Not a
So
problem.
those attributes that he has taken in, has he added them in to his nature?
No.
So what has he done?
So he hasn't, because you're mixing up things.
I'm not missing anything. I'm asking you.
What
has he
added
done?
into what? His divine nature has specific necessary properties. Okay?
We have no disagreement on that.
Okay.
Disagreement is on the human nature that he has now taken onto
Yes.
himself.
So now he took on a human part.
What do you mean by
Which
took
will
on?
say-
Explain.
Okay, assume. I can't tell you the metaphysics of it. But
No,
he
no, no. What
assumed
do you
the human
mean?
nature.
Assume.
So he took on.
Did he
assumed
add
whatever.
to his nature?
Not added, but okay, a stupid example. Because I mean, all we can do is give
Don't
examples.
bring stupid examples with God. So explain to me without bringing stupid
But okay, but can I-
example. What do you mean by he added his
But
nature?
can I say something? Because you're not going to understand what I'm saying. Okay,
Do
unless
you
I give an
understand?
analogy.
Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Right. If you understand, I'm sure someone will understand.
Okay, good.
Maybe I'm not capable of understanding from your assumption, but maybe someone will. So go ahead.
So, doctrine of Trinity, two natures, one divine, one human nature. They didn't mix, okay, so that's part of the Council of Chalcedon's statement. They didn't mix, which you're saying now in some way.
I didn't say anything
So,
about mix. You
human-
keep on
so-
imposing words on
so
me. I never even
divine-
used the word mix.
Can I finish? Divine nature, human nature. One person, okay, God took on a human part, okay, which we call the human nature of God. Sorry, the human nature that God has now. As Jesus, he took on a human part. He
What
always
does it
had a-
mean he took on? It's what we need to understand.
What do you mean?
That means he
I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Yeah, what do you mean he
Add
took on?
Okay, he assumed that as an accidental property.
Let me give you my reasons why it's
It's an
difficult to
act-
understand
okay,
from
okay.
my part, right?
Okay.
God, he is perfect.
Yes.
A perfect being doesn't need anything to be added to his nature.
Doesn't need. Yeah, I agree with you. Yes.
So if you add anything to a perfect nature, you are adding imperfection. So when you say he took on, so he took on imperfection to his perfect nature.
You still haven't got me because I'm not talking about his perfect nature. I'm not saying he took on these things into his perfect nature. That is separate from his human nature. The human nature is an accidental property of God. When I use the word accidental, I don't mean mistake. I mean it's contingent. Okay, God didn't have to have it. God has certain things that are necessary. God has certain things that are accidental, such as his human nature that he took on. He didn't mix it. It's the same way if I put on a jacket. It's a property I have. I have a jacket. It's an accidental property. Doesn't mean it's part of my nature. That's exactly the way when we're talking about the doctrine of the Trinity, sorry, the incarnation. We're talking about that God took on accidental property, which is the human nature. This jacket does not add anything to me. These shoes or anything don't add anything to me. They're still properties. You understand?
So it has nothing to do with your essence
Yes.
and your attributes. So God could have, according to your logic, he could have added the properties of a potato, right? And still be a perfect God.
Sorry?
According to your logic,
But one second, I mean, they're laughing, but you just
I'm
said
not laughing.
don't bring up.
No, I didn't.
You're not
I'm
laughing.
not
Yeah, but
laughing.
I mean, but one second, you must have done it for comedic value because you're simply bringing a silly example. That
I
you
didn't
said
bring
you
a
shouldn't
silly example.
you
This
should
is
have potatoes.
this is the consequence of this kind of reasoning. You have a perfect being who is 100% perfect. He doesn't need anything to be taken away from his attributes or to be added into his attributes. You are somehow saying God can still add and take on something which are imperfect, whether it's a potato or a human being or a jacket, and still that doesn't somehow, mix or anything. That's what you're saying, isn't it? If you take in a jacket, imagine now God takes in a jacket, your jacket, this very jacket. He will still be God with this jacket, right? Right. So what you're saying is this jacket hasn't been added to his nature.
Yeah, exactly.
It has totally remained separate.
Yes.
So it is not God. It has nothing to do with adding to his nature or his essence. It is still his creation.
Yes, so what's the issue?
Right. So when Jesus took in a human form,
Sorry, when the Son of God, Jesus was the...
when the divine took in the human form, he took in a form of creation. And that creation is distinct from what he is.
Yes.
Right. So that's why I wasn't even discussing any of that. I asked you, now let's rewind back. You believe God is unknowledgeable. You believe the Son of God is unknowledgeable. And yet the Son of God didn't know the hour, only the Father knows.
What I was saying to you
The Father knows. So now you have the divine being, according to Philippians. It says he was very nature like God, but he emptied himself. He humbled himself, he became nothing. So it wasn't the human that became nothing. The human is nothing in the first place. The human is ignorant. The property of human is being ignorant, not unknowledgeable. So what, according to Philippians, became nothing was the divine. So now you have... Let me finish my point. Only one question. You have the divine Son, the Logos, which became ignorant. Now, this is something that is gibberish statement, because unknowledgeable does not become ignorant. You said I supported you. Of course, we supported each other. But you need to be consistent and apply that and say, yes, the divine cannot be ignorant because it's gibberish statement. How do you explain your position now?
So, two things. The duplicative predication, which I told you before, allows me to say one thing can have contradictory properties. So I gave the example of the apple. The apple in the core is green, the skin is red.
Creation.
That's always it. You're always the example.
No, these are all creation. Apple, jacket, creation. Deliberately, my friend.
Can I say something?
No.
You butt me in.
Do you know why I'm saying this? Do you know why I'm doing this?
You can't.
I'm trying to clarify your point.
You continue.
You cannot bring in the examples of creation.
I was trying to say something, you just butt in. It's not me anymore.
With all due respect.
Can I finish?
You can. But with all due respect, the reason why I'm interjecting is this. You're bringing in examples of the creation, like a human body, like a jacket, like apple. I'm saying no. The divine Son, before anything was created, existed as the divine Son according to your belief. How does that divine Son...
I mean, you're taking all the
I'm
time.
asking you to clarify.
I was trying to finish
How
my
does
point.
this divine Son become ignorant?
Can I finish my point?
Please.
Use the Bible.
What you said doesn't make sense because the words you are using are creation. So you can't say you're using words that are creation. You can't say you can't refer to the creator and the creation. The words you're using are creation. So you're just contradicting yourself.
No, I didn't. Let me clarify what I did there.
You said you can't use an example of creation to speak about the creator.
No, because you
you're
already
using
clarified.
words to refer
the reason
to the
why,
creator.
because you already clarified, whatever incarnation happened was added. It was also part of creation. It never mixed. So I'm saying we're not going to talk about the mixture or not a mixture of these bodies or apples and jackets. We are going to focus on the very essence and the attributes of the divine Son that you believe in. In the attributes of the divine Son, did his attribute of unknowledgeable become less than unknowledgeable?
Less than all knowledgeable. No, not at all. Not at all. If you understand what I'm explaining, if you understand what I'm saying, I won't give an example then, I'll just use the term. I just did it so other people will understand what
Use
I'm
the
saying.
Bible. Use the Bible.
Why does the Bible say contrary to what you say?
Can I say something? With duplicative predication, you can talk about something and something even though they're contradictory. So I gave the example, I won't use it, but if something has a contradictory property and another thing has a contradictory property, with duplicative predication, which we do all the time, you can allow them to coexist. It's not talking about nonsense. So when I am saying that Jesus was all-knowing, I am talking about his omniscience and his divine nature. When I'm saying Jesus was, he didn't know something about something, he lacked that knowledge in his human nature.
Wrong.
Now, when you brought up Philippians, can I explain? When you brought up Philippians, you have to define what were they talking about. You're really saying to me Paul was talking about Greek things such as Aristotelian properties about omniscience and all these sort of things that we are talking about here. Or are you talking about Paul was just simply talking about the majesty of God that was let go of, not about properties or all these sort of things which you're trying to say? Why did you bring in Philippians? Obviously Paul as a Jew at that time was not going to be speaking in that manner in the way that we're speaking now. So you brought something that's not even
2,000 years of Christian scholarship.
Yes.
Have they went and said the emptying here refers to the emptying of his human nature?
Yes, that's kenoticism, and that's kenoticism. by the way, and that came up about 200 years ago, where they were saying it was actually the divine nature that was empty. But the majority of scholars, can I say to you, the majority, no, there will be people you can find who support that viewpoint, but the majority of scholars will say now, people who just study this, the text, will say that obviously can't be talking about the divine nature. Because then,
about which nature?
no, whatever you're saying, the divine nature.
Let's understand Philippians. Is it talking about human Jesus emptying of him being ignorant and still being ignorant, or the divine who was God to begin with becoming ignorant? Which one makes sense? So does it make sense to say the human being who is also ignorant to begin with emptied himself and becomes ignorant? It makes no sense because human is ignorant in the first place. Or is it talking about the divine Logos, which was God to begin with, but then became ignorant?
So I'll go to the second one. It's talking about obviously
it makes no sense if it's a human being. Because it doesn't make any sense to say, oh, he was human, and then he emptied himself and became less than human.
Okay. So
it makes no sense.
Okay, can I speak to this? So, if you actually look at the verse, we can bring it up.
Yeah, bring it up, please. Bring it up.
Mine's like a machine, isn't it? He needs to tell you who died on the cross, the Father.
We can come to this. And let's go back to this verse about no one knows the hour.
He needs to define what death means.
Fair enough. Let's read Philippians.
Cessation of the existence, but I mean, what you
Brother, let's according to Philippians, who emptied himself? The human or the divine?
I'm saying the divine son. I have no problem with that. So I'm saying, what do you mean? I'm talking about the divine son. So I'm not talking about.
You're saying the divine son emptied himself.
Yes, but what?
So now you agree with me.
So what we
that this is gibberish statement.
So what are we talking about when we're saying empty? What do you mean?
Did he become less than all the things that God is?
Did he become less than all? No.
So he remained the same.
Yes.
And yet he emptied himself.
Okay. So, no, just because you understand.
Explain.
Mansour, okay. What's wrong?